Welcome to Daredevil in the Details, a show that explores and dotes on the philosophy and themes of Netflix's Daredevil, a digression collection brought to you by A Method to the Madness and ZeroIndent. I'm author DC McNeil, and I'm joined, as always, by Patrick from A Method to the Madness. Pat, 3 episodes this time. How are you feeling?
Ooh,
It was a big one.
feeling
They
good.
were long episodes.
I like these
too.
episodes. Yeah.
You said last time that, because I had kind of forgotten this part of the show.
Yeah, everyone does.
Yeah,
Which is a shame.
this is some crazy shit right here. These 3 episodes.
Yeah.
So we're talking about episodes, season 2, episode 5, 6, and 7, which is episodes 18, 19, and 20. These are like probably some of the more dense kind of. We'll get into it when we talk through the specifics, but these are the most like dense sort of maneuvers that they do structurally, I think, that we've seen in the show so far, particularly as it pertains to like Karen and Elektra, and Matt and Foggy and Frank. Like there's a lot going on here, and no one says any of it out loud. It's extremely good.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of difficult to pass. Because it is so dense. Like there's actually like a lot of like meaty character work going on here. And it's difficult to like resolve it in your mind, like how these different like plot threads kind of work together, I feel. But these couple episodes are like some of the best on a rewatch. When you're rewatching the series, I mean, for those reasons. Yeah, these episodes are so good. The dialogue in like especially the second episode of this 3 is so good. It's so compelling. It's great.
It's pretty damn impressive, and like even just schematically, there's a lot going on. You know, well, one of the big things I want to think about this time is like, and it's what a lot of my notes ended up being about, which is like, what does it mean that, like we said last episode, Matt has this like brief period where everything is going right, and then suddenly Elektra shows back up, and like schematically for this story, like what does that mean about Matt as a person? Like what is that saying and think? Like what is it thinking about when it thinks about Matt Murdock and what he deserves and the sort of life that he's permitted to lead, while being Daredevil? Like and what does that mean for his, not just his relationship with Karen, but like his potential relationship with anyone except Elektra? And that to me is like really interesting.
Yeah.
It's good
Yeah,
stuff.
and it's really dire relationship drama. Like it's there's a lot of potential consequences, and it's great.
No one's having a good time in these episodes either.
Yeah.
Except for Elektra.
Yeah.
She's having a great time.
That is true, yeah.
All right, let's get into the summary. So first we're going to talk about episode 18, Kinbaku, which is season 2, episode 5, by Lauren Schmidt Hissrich, and directed by Floria Sigismondi. This is a particularly dense episode, so I apologize in advance for the length of the summary. But there's a whole heck of a lot going on. So Pat, when you're ready, my friend, could you take us away?
A decade ago, Murdock and Foggy sneak into a party. Matt meets the high-flying, luxurious Elektra Nachios, who believes she has him figured out. Matt surprises her, and they steal a sports car together, whisks away into the streets of Hell's Kitchen. In the now, Elektra asks for Matt's help dealing with with Roxxon Energy. He refuses, but when a large sum of money appears in Nelson and Murdock's account, he's forced to intervene. In the then, Elektra pressures Matt to reveal his abilities. They engage in an intense, almost sadistic relationship. She lures Matt to an estate, hoping they'll kill Sweeney, the man who murdered his father. In the now, Matt and Karen embark on an awkward date that matriculates into an intimate evening. They aren't just dating now. We can feel their future hanging in the air in front of us. So many forks in the road lay before them as they sit on Karen's stoop. In the then, Matt refuses to kill Sweeney, and in doing so, seemingly learns why he should wear a mask when Sweeney deduces his identity. Matt refuses to take Sweeney's life. Perhaps the Catholic in him. Perhaps the man he will become surfacing. Whatever the reason, this choice draws a line between Matt and Elektra. They are different sides of the same coin no longer. This is the last time Matt sees Elektra. In the now, Matt visits Elektra hoping to reconcile some aspect of his past. some part of their relationship, and consequently the story he believes about her. The Yakuza come for Elektra, and she reveals the Daredevil suit.
This is like this episode is so dense that even just like that summary excises a lot of what is like small detail, but is also like critical detail. It's such a difficult one to try and. I think it would be very reductionist of us to say this episode is about the backstory between Matt and Elektra, because it is that. But I don't know, like what do you make of? We talked a little bit about the fact that like this part of the season is a pretty hard genre switch. I have more to say about it in the next episode 6, but it feels like Elektra is like from a different show almost entirely. Like tonally, like her affective register and everything like that. And I like the way that the kind of the way that Matt meets Elektra in inverted commas is like he's hearing her breathing, which is sort of a pretty interesting parallel to the way that he meets Karen, right? They are placed in opposition in that way, where Karen, when he meets her, she literally has no one else to turn to, and Elektra's like the opposite. She has everything she could ever want. And there's kind of there's something interesting happening here about the distance between the Matt Murdock in the past, like this person he was, and the man he is, and it's like so effortlessly communicated by just showing us these contrast cuts of him with Elektra, someone that we like. If you think to the Matt of last season, you can't imagine him being in a relationship with a person like this. He's so like terse and like dramatically put upon, and like he has this like he's just thinking about these big Catholic ideas of damnation, and they drink at the cheap bar and they don't make any money, and like it's impossible to imagine him with a person like this. And so when we get that, Matt and Karen, and he's finally found someone that is kind of as affronted by existence as he is in the same kinds of ways, and you contrast that with this previous version of himself and this previous relationship, it just like it sets all of this up with that single flashback and then a cut back to the present, which is then what these next episodes really are going to be about. Yeah, I wanted to call attention to that early because I have a lot to say about like what they do with that at like a schematic level later on when they start to move those pieces around, and Elektra begins to try and find where that line is for Matt now and try and see how much he can push him, which ultimately, I suspect might break bad. I don't remember exactly, but I can't imagine this is going to end well.
What do you mean? This is a happy-go-lucky show, obviously.
Look, if your sexy ninja ex-girlfriend turns up just when you started dating your receptionist, you're doing some stuff wrong.
Yeah,
it's not all going
it is horrible
right
timing, isn't it?
But that's part of what I want to get into, I guess, right?
Yeah. It's all about like, I don't know, maturity and like impulsiveness and I don't know, just getting really into Matt's psychology and like what he thinks of himself. It's some real like serious like character drama.
You know what it is? It feels like it's like high school lunchroom drama, but like put through the lens of this just like hyper real kind of version of Hell's Kitchen. I mean, like you even get there's some stuff I like about Elektra immediately, right? I said it earlier, but I want to dig into this and kind of get your perspective as well. She like behaves in a way no one else in the show. Like it's not even like that they are like she behaves in a way that like no one else in the show so far feels like they even can. Like everyone is so restricted by Hell's Kitchen and they're like locked into this modality of Daredevil, like the tone of the universe, right? Like they talk in these big kind of terse monologues. They're thinking about these big things, and Elektra turns up and she just is able to do like jokes all the time, and she has this really like I'll put a clip in of it somewhere, but she has this kind of like perpetually like flirty, energetic affectation where she's always in this upper register that no one else in the show, except for Foggy at times, seems to even be capable of approaching. And there's like something happening there as it pertains to Matt and his psychology.
It's especially in this first episode where she's introduced, it's quite comic booky. And I feel like it kind of gives the wrong impression of like the following episodes, but like it's not inconsistent at all. It's like that is just like who she is, but the following episodes, just affirm and explain why she's like that, and you start to see like how those threads like weave together in the coming few episodes about her personality, about her characterization, and her inner character as well, and all of that in relation to Matt Murdock. It all like, I don't know, it all makes sense to me.
Yeah, it fits very neatly with where he finds himself now, I suppose. I also like there's some hints here of like things that I'm pretty sure we learn later, so I don't want to like spoil it. But she says German beer tastes like piss, and that reminded me of another character. And I went,
I noted that down too.
Little details. I won't spoil it because I know there are some people that are watching along as we go. But yeah, I mean, just to set this up, so she basically, so she turns up at his apartment. This is obviously the night after the same night of his first date with Karen. And she kind of fronts that she needs a lawyer. And he basically says, take a long walk. Like, I want nothing to do with you. Like, get the fuck out of my life, basically. And she's very kind of like effortlessly condescending about the things that he puts value in some kind of interesting way where, almost immediately she's like, oh, like, you go, oh, you got this little life, do you? Yeah, that's cute. She's always dealing with much bigger things than that. Which I thought was
she's
really
a dick,
interesting.
Yeah,
she's kind of just a real asshole to him at all times. But there's something about Matt that like there's that sadistic streak in him, and I think he kind of likes that. Maybe he maybe not likes it, but he's unable to resist it. There's a thing Foggy says later.
He's well equipped to handle it.
Yeah, if there was anyone who's used to getting the shit beaten out of him and seeming to enjoy it, it's Matt fucking Murdock. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, that's right.
So then we have the flashback where they're then at the party, and Matt says, I think you're dying on the vine of this tight-ass party because daddy's money can't buy the one thing you really need, the unexpected. And I've written down here, like, this show, and Matt in particular, has this specific, like, philosophical affectation that it seems like to me to be, like, in some ways, or at least in a show's perspective, like, inherently Catholic in some way, where, like, we talked about this a couple of episodes ago, that there is a parabolization of reality where, like, everything within it has the possibility to become a parable with some kind of lesson or some kind of takeaway. Like, he doesn't just say like he doesn't say you're bored, Pat. He has to come up there and say you're bored and I'm exciting. He has to like couch it in this particular kind of it's he doesn't even say like, oh yeah, you're just waiting for the unexpected. It's, I think you're dying on the vine, dying on the vine. Like, it's such a specific, vivid descriptor. Because daddy's money can't buy you the one thing you really need, the unexpected. Like, he lets
dying
it.
On the vine.
Yeah.
Is that some sort of Jonas or Jonah reference?
I think so. I think it's to do with like wine and fields and Jonas, and it's all kind of bundled up
in that story when he goes to that city that he's meant to, that God tells him to go to. There's a vine that grows and like provides the city shade or something, and then God kills it the next day. He like grows and kills it, and I can't remember what the lesson was about that particular detail in that story. But hey, vines, vague Christian symbolism, there's maybe something there.
Jonah 4:8. When the sun rose, God provided a scorching east wind, and the sun blazed on Jonah's head so that he grew faint. He wanted to die and said, it would be better for me to die than to live. But God said to Jonah, do you have a right to be angry about the vine? I do, he said. I am angry enough to die. But the Lord said, you have been concerned about this vine, though you did not tend it or make it grow. It sprang up overnight and died overnight. But Nineveh has more than 120,000 people who cannot tell their right hand from their left, and many cattle as well. Should I not be concerned about that great city? I think like the lesson there it's the Bible, so like you can probably find like 10 different people who would tell you 10 different interpretations. But to me that's like pretty obvious, right? Which is like Jonah is angry because something that he did nothing to earn benefited him, and now it's gone. And God kind of goes, yeah, but like you're not the center of the universe. There's like an entire city of people out there who, you know, yikes from God, can't tell their right hand from their left, calling them dummies. And he's saying like, shouldn't I be worried about a city full of idiots? Like, isn't that more important than me tending to this one vine for you, this one person? It's sort of calling
Right.
him out for being selfish. I think it's
Yeah,
the
it's
moral
about
there.
like responsibility because like it's like a microcosm of like the hero's journey, right? Like it's the call to action is like sort of the I don't know. It's kind of like the most important like uh detail in that particular like Jonah story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the and you have to wonder like, okay, something that I want to touch on a little bit because I've been thinking about this before. I was talking to the Star Wars guys about this the other night, and I think sometimes people will look at a line of dialogue like that, and they will attempt to find some kind of unifying uh, idea or truth claim or something like that about the story, and then they want to sort of take all of these mechanisms in the story and make them into keys for that particular claim. There's something that Mark Frost talks about a lot, which is like the difference between a secret and a mystery in story, where a
Mm-hmm.
secret is something that exists to be revealed, and a mystery simply is by the nature of a story. And I think a lot of people want to they want to like rationalize mysteries into secrets because that's like a mode of media criticism that we talked about before, right? That's going to be your cinema sins. That's going to be these particular modes of like of media criticism, which are like they want to solve a story. And so
Yeah.
when you were talking about, as we're talking about that Jonas story, that also made me think again of like the writers don't like that line isn't just, oh yeah, they might have accidentally had him like say dying on the vine or whatever. Yeah, that could be true, but also he's like a Catholic character who views himself or is positioned as a martyr um, before he has come to his place as that martyr, right? This is like, if we think about it, this is a very like Lives of the Saints style interaction where you're getting like these vague kind of stories about this character's life before they were a saint. Um, and this kind of fits into that mode as well for me, where we're getting the Elektra flashbacks not because their past has anything to really do with like the positions they're in now or like the people they are now necessarily, but because it's like it's placing these ideas contiguous to what's happening in the now. Like it's not
Mm.
saying, oh, you need to know about what happened with Elektra so you can understand the story and what's going on. These are not plot motivated decisions they're making. These are like I said before, like schematically, and what I mean by that is they are put in place next to other ideas to call your attention to those things in context with each other and in contrast or in friction with each other, right? And one thing specifically about this line I like is something the next two episodes, and indeed this one as well, are like really interested in is what you said last season, which is like what does like redemption mean for these people, and is it possible, right? Is it possible for Matt to remain in his current pattern of redemption? Is it possible for Frank to be redeemed? What does Karen think about all this? What does that mean for their relationship? And indeed, like Elektra doesn't want redemption because she doesn't feel like she needs it. It's just a
Mm.
it's putting all of those ideas next to each other and then continuing with the story and letting them kind of build up. But this for me is like that first moment.
Yeah. When dialogue is charged by like themes and like motifs and sort of vague ideas that aren't meant to be, necessarily taken literally, it adds to the soup of like subliminal meaning that is it kind of like what um the kind of magic that storytelling gives you, right? It's like it's maybe not too, it's like, I don't know, quantum storytelling, quantum narrative theory. Like it's not a like a rigid puzzle piece that you can put somewhere. It's just it is and it isn't, and it can it's a superposition of meaning. Um That's a cool metaphor I just came up with.
That was that was very well put. Yeah.
That's funny, man. Actually yesterday, I'm working on a Breaking Bad theories video, so I was like looking up Breaking Bad theories, and what you were talking about the difference between like secrets and mysteries in narratives and stuff. Some of the theories that I'm looking for are ones that are like in universe, like, was Gus secretly working for the CIA, that kind of stuff. That's what I want to talk about. But then when I look up theories online, a lot of them are like color theory stuff, and like, oh, the show uses pink to like represent danger and stuff like that. And that's really fascinating to me that people conflate like stuff like, symbolism and like themes to like fan theories. Like, I don't know. I was thinking like, man, bet David would have some shit to say about this.
Man. I mean, I've said this before, but it's like when you're in high school, and the teacher says, okay, so you read like a Robert Frost poem or something like that, and they say, okay, why did he make the curtains purple in this poem? And there's always one fucking kid who's like, he just had to they had to be a color. And there's another kid who's like, well, actually, according to, I've actually read the Wikipedia, and what you'll find is that it's purple because when he was writing this poem, he was staying in a hotel with purple. It's like, shut the fuck up. like it's just an unwillingness to meet stories where they're at. And I think that conflation just really does come from, this is going to sound more, I guess, like, derisive or derogatory than I intend it to, but I do mean this like quite descriptively. It comes from a place of the media apparatus becoming the media criticism apparatus becoming widely available to unskilled practitioners who find themselves influenced by particular political projects. And what I mean by that isn't necessarily like left or right, but like, okay, I'm doing this because I need to get a bunch of clicks to get AdSense to pay my rent, and that produces a particular mode of media criticism. And if you're unskilled in the craft in some sense, then it can be very easy to cross and dissolve some of those lines that like exist for, frankly, like for a reason. They help us like tackle different things with different perspectives. And so to me, when you read stuff like that, that is people trying to. I'll read you what I wrote the other night because I think this will put a good hat on this idea. So I can't find the essay to save my life, but Mark Frost writes about the difference between secret and mystery in story. Secrets exist to be revealed. Mysteries simply are. And there is a motivation by some to render all mysteries into secrets, thereby creating a singular key to unlock stories, thereby closing so many doors of the text. Whereas a discursive community seeks to identify and interrogate the many doors they can find production from and extend into new forms of pre-production. And then the example I use is the classic secret in a story is everything in Harry Potter to an extent. The Tom Riddle I am Lord Voldemort reveal. The Snape was a good guy all along. There is a clickiness to those stories where everything fits almost like too neatly, too turnkey in a big sense. And I think that when we think about this stuff, I'm reminded of I bring this up all the time because I think it really is just like a beautiful piece of writing. But I'm reminded of the ways in which there is like a meta reflexiveness in a lot of postmodern writing, where like it's writers writing stories that are thinking about stories, and you don't get to that place without the oppositional space, which is like what you were talking about before, which is everything must be solved. I don't think you get that kind of writing without that strongness of opposition, because it motivates writers to start thinking about this stuff, and that's obviously like the postmodern movement and the kind of the new meta modern stuff that we're seeing as well. But I'll read this from this is from Disco Elysium. This is actually the bumper quote for my Sherlock book as well. And it's basically like it's a story thinking about solving problems and solving people and solving reality in a certain sense. And so this is how it goes. So the problem, God damn it, it cannot be. A disgrace. That door on the coast, you remember that one, right? The one that leads to the abandoned supply depot. Why, in the name of all that's holy, does it not open? Why? There has to be a way to get through that unopenable door. By gods, you're the police. All doors are supposed to open before you. What will the others at the precinct think if you can't open that goddamn door? There must be a way. Solution. There is no way to open the supply depot door. Accept it. You cannot open all the doors. You have to integrate this into your character. Some doors will remain forever closed. Even if every single door will open at one time or another, maybe to a key or maybe to some sort of tool meant for opening doors. But this one will never accede to such commands. A realization crucial to personal growth. Crucial. And for me, I think that just encapsulates where you want to get to as someone that thinks and talks about stories and reality and politics and however you want to think about what I mean when I say that. It is about being able to develop strong opinions and hold them loosely and accept that like there will be things where like some stuff you just can't solve, and that to me is like the joy of it, right? Which is how do we dig into this and try and produce meaning from it or produce ideas from it that we can put in conversation with other things. Like there's something that I want to ask you, Pat, which I think is like very much in this mode, which is what is going on with Elektra and the color red in this show, right? Like they are constantly putting her in clothes that are red, and we've never seen any other character be kind of coded this way with like color. And I don't know what it means. And they put Matt in red ties multiple times in these few episodes. I have no idea what it means. I don't know if it means anything other than it's like it gets you thinking about these two and their relationship. Like I don't think it's like when Matt's wearing red, it's because he's smitten with Elektra, and when he's wearing black, it's when he's smitten with like I don't think it works like that. But it is like notable and made me think about what does that mean for these characters. You know, she's in red when they meet. She wears a red dress later. She has on the red scarf. You know, there's questions there. There's things that raises to me. But I don't think there is a solution to that.
I mean, yeah, that's what I mean. I feel that's how I feel about all color theory. Really, like it's vague, like connections between ideas and characters. You know, in this case, drawing some parallels between Matt and Elektra. I mean, the red on Matt always matched with the show's emphasis on like blood, and you know, even in like the marketing, like a lot of the red is conflated with blood and stuff like that. I don't know. Does Elektra wear a darker shade of red than Matt? Perhaps.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, later on, certainly yes. There's a thing I've written. I just want to lose my place in my notes. Let me quickly scroll to this. I did note this down later. Yeah, okay, so I've written here, I've been thinking a lot about the color red because of Elektra and her presentation. It is distinctive and pronounced in the show. It is the color of blood frequently, but it is also the color of lifeblood. But in the darkness, it is impossible to distinguish from the shadows. And as Elektra and Matt move in between different parts of the world, so this is when they're doing the corporate espionage mission. There is something about the way that the design of these characters informs the content that I don't think can be like separated. There is something about because this character wears red, when they are filming this character in certain scenes, it is like it calls your attention to the fact that like only in the light can you see the red, and in the darkness it is all just black. And like they do this thing multiple times in these two episodes where Elektra will present herself to a character, and then Daredevil will drop in behind them, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And like one of them is always in shadow, and like there is a visual style here which is like the most, like you said, it's the most comic book the show has been so far, where you can almost see these as panels in a comic book, or a splash cover on a comic book. The way that they are using shadow and the color red to like create, like they sort of like dissolve out of the shadows a lot of the time, in a way that is just like frankly sick as hell, and like just like it's really visually quite exciting. Is maybe where where I get to with that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that, like, yeah, she wears a red scarf. Daredevil's suit is red. I think it's kind of notable that, like, he covers up the top of his head and she covers up the bottom of her face. There's something happening there with, like, the rhyming.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, their colors, I mean, maybe not with his new suit, but certainly with his old suit, they're inverted because he wears black on his face, whereas she wears red on her face and black on her body. And the old suit was black on the face and red on the body. So
interesting. See that? Yeah, that's interesting. And, like, you know, in a lot of ways they are, like I kind of hinted at in the summary, they are like two sides of the same coin in a lot of ways. And it seems to me that, like, their lives is a big part of, like, the differences in their lives is a big part of, like, what produced the people they are. And the show is really interested in that in these episodes because it's interested in, like, Karen and, like, where is she positioned with Matt now versus, like, Elektra, and how is she positioned with Matt now versus then. And in particular, you know, like, almost immediately, Karen in this episode is distanced from Matt both physically and psychologically. You know, she goes to the bulletin almost immediately, which is quite a choice move in my opinion. But, like, she's moving away from Nelson and Murdock, sort of, while Matt is, like, you know, drawing into closer proximity with Elektra. There is something there about I don't know, like, I think the show is interested in putting these two characters in opposition to each other at, like, a schematic level, right? Because Matt and Elektra are really the only two characters that can be disassembled in the show. Everyone else is more or less complete and presented. So I think it's kind of noteworthy that Matt and Elektra shows up when Matt and Karen are getting together. There's like something isometrically similar where Matt and Karen are doing what Matt and Elektra did in the past, and what Elektra is doing in the present is circling that. You know, their form is different, but they kind of echo and they're kind of like funhouse mirrors of each other, where, you know, in the past, Elektra is this, like, ultra wealthy, you know, high status person, and Matt is like this poor lawyer, but he's exciting to her and novel and new, and she's dangerous and, like, has this kind of sadistic streak to her. We'll talk about it a little bit later when we get to the gym scene. And then Karen is, like, sort of is like perpetually put upon and has this, like, irascible, just, like, has to do the right thing at all times, like, is like compelled in the same way Matt is, and they're positioning these two things and saying, okay, well, this was the relationship he had in the past and this was the outcome of it, and then it's saying, okay, well, if he's having a relationship now and these variables are different, what will that mean for the outcome, and what does that mean for the process of getting to that outcome? And you know, the answer is, like, nothing good, I don't think, which I'm sure we'll get to with the next two episodes. But yeah, it is putting those two schemas next to each other and going, man, Matt really needs to stop talking to this woman. It's not going to go well.
Yeah, I mean, Elektra and Karen are both reflect very different qualities about Matt Murdock. That, you know, he has all of those things. And therefore, the decisions he makes regarding Karen and Elektra, you know, give you a real keen insight into, like, what he, you know, the very core of his character, you know, what he truly values, what he wants, and stuff like that.
Okay, sorry, we got off on a huge tangent already. I think that stuff
that
is,
was
like,
a huge tangent.
is really critical to these episodes.
I also love how you just had that Disco Elysium quote on hand. You're just like, yeah.
It's always close by, Pat. I was literally reading that from the PDF of the Sherlock book. I could have reached behind me and used the physical one, but I thought it would be that might be, like, too close to self-promotion, you know?
You're just like, oh, let me read this book.
Let me read it from this book by DC McNeil.
One more door. There is no way to open the supply depot door. Accept it. You cannot open all the doors. You have to integrate this into your character. Some doors will forever remain closed, even if every single other door will open at one time or another. Maybe to a key, or maybe to some sort of tool meant for opening doors. But this one will never accede to such commands. A realization crucial to personal growth. Crucial.
Is it just talking about the flashback scene for a second? Is it deliberate that he looks a lot like Ben Affleck's Daredevil?
I don't think it's
That's
a
what I
coincidence. There's got a similar haircut.
Yeah, and
The
the
glasses.
square glasses.
Yeah.
Like I think it's a nod to that movie.
It could be. It shouldn't be because that movie's not good. But yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, but then I mean, Elektra's so different visually, like the way that they dressed her. So maybe, but I guess it's also not 2000. Actually, no, it would have been the same era. Flashback wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Canonically, when that would have taken place, it would have been when
Yeah.
that released. So
Ironic, eh? I mean, it is a convenience that they can just. It's convenient that the way that they can do flashback with Matt is comb his hair forward and change their glasses. I think that's a lot harder for other characters, right?
yeah.
Or like they just I love that flashback Foggy is the same Foggy just with a goatee. It's very funny to me.
Yeah.
Whenever we get to see
And
him.
he has longer hair.
Oh yeah, that's true. Hey, give me goatee Foggy again. What are we doing? You cowards. Bring him back.
Yeah. He rocks that.
Yeah. It's he kind of does. He kind of low key like I think it's a better vibe for me than weird in between long and short hair Foggy. I don't know. That's never worked for me.
Yeah, no, hippie Foggy gives off better vibes than lawyer Foggy for sure.
Oh yeah, and you know that like hippie Foggy trying to smoke a blunt, like and it'd be a good time.
Well, only one time apparently.
Oh, only one.
It made
that's
him
right.
drool.
It made him
Yeah.
drool. Oh, he's so lame. Actually, speaking of Foggy, Foggy and Marcy get this drink, right? And we get our first explicit. Is this our first explicit verbal connection to Jessica Jones?
Yeah, I think so.
What do you like make of that?
They were just told by Marvel, the Netflix Marvel people that like, hey, you know, you got to start connecting these things.
You got to promote
And,
this other show.
I mean that. Yeah, I mean that was probably enough, you know. Well, I mean, they're also pretty heavily setting up the Defenders this season, so
Oh,
yeah,
I forgot that's coming.
yeah, it's pretty involved.
God damn it. Yeah, I mean, and I don't think it's an accident that they group. So Marcy basically explains that the DA Reyes, who we are all pretty much convinced is a bad apple at this point. Reyes is planning to use Frank to set precedent to crack down on vigilantes once and for all. Here you get the maneuver of grouping, like you were just saying, grouping Daredevil, Frank Castle, and Jessica Jones into like the same category. Which I like in my mind, like obviously discloses the, like you said, the rest of the season's priority, which is like setting up the kind of Defenders and the problem that they will need to solve in some ways. I also think it's like interesting that like what does it mean for Frank Castle as a character and Justice that like he becomes a target for the DA to essentially make her career? Like he is going to become a building block for a corrupt. We think she's corrupt at this point. We don't have the confirmation yet. But like a relatively dodgy district attorney, what does it mean for her to try and put away this like mass killer to build her career, but doing it in the wrong way? Like this show is thinking a lot about like Frank and justice and redemption. We get that conversation later in the next episode with Matt and Karen, which we'll come to when we come to. But yeah, I don't know. There's something there about like it just stuck out to me as like very interesting that he's the target that she's going to use to kind of make herself the person that stops vigilantes in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah. I mean, is it sort of hinted at in these episodes that she's quite involved in his past?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that comes later.
Then never mind.
Then
yeah.
then please disregard that. Strike that from the record.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, please disregard what you've heard.
Okay, I mean, we will obviously have to talk about the big Matt and Karen date, but I've banged on a bit about some of that stuff before that. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we talk about the date?
Nope. Let's talk about it.
Oh boy,
You're talking about Matt and Karen's date?
Yeah.
Yeah,
they have like the most awkward dinner at like a fancy restaurant. Matt gets a call from his ex-girlfriend while he's there. It's just it's a lot. Karen is lying to Matt is lying to Karen. Really good foundation for a relationship, guys. Good job.
And Karen is just so adorably like awkward.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the episode when she enters the office with the coffees, and she's just like Matt is like playing it casual, but like Karen is just a mess. And and then in this date scene, Matt goes, I don't drink anything that they don't serve at Josie's. Karen goes, oh, I don't see swill on the menu. Haha. And then just gets no reaction from Matt. It's so funny.
I like that she just does not know how to be around him now that this has happened. She's just a complete mess. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And I like I mean, you touched on it exactly. It has like that particular flavor of awkward that feels so like it just like it feels really authentic. Like the performances here are doing a lot for me with this material. Yeah, she's very cute, and like in this mode of like the coffee thing is so funny because it's like she's holding them. You kind of forgets to like they're in the middle of doing something else, and she starts to intervene and be like, I brought coffee, and then it's like, wait, no, that's weird. They're already having a conversation. Oh shit, I'm already doing it now. Like it's sort of this constant stumbling.
Yeah. She forgets that she's holding coffee.
Yeah, it's really good. But actually, speaking of yeah, so then Matt's like, hey, can we just like get the fuck out of here? Like, I do not feel comfortable in this place. And then Pat, we cut back to the past, and it's Elektra and Matt doing fancy people stuff and drinking Macallan. And I went, oh my god, this show fucking rules. Matt being like, I don't drink nothing that doesn't get served at Josie's. And you cut back to him drinking Macallan, and you go, huh.
Okay, yeah, I like it.
And I'm like, okay, Matt. So like, but you used to. And that's what I mean by like how effortlessly it demonstrates the difference between these two men, like the person he was and the person he is. Just stuff like that, right? I think I audibly said "wow" when that happened. I was like, God damn, that's just so tidy.
This show loves cutting between dates.
Like, yeah,
it
does.
First season with Wilson Fisk, yeah.
Oh yeah, it did. Yeah. Interesting.
Huh. It's such a useful like way to I don't know, show differences and similarities and maturity and growth.
Yeah. Especially like I also just want to say like I think it's notable too. This is just a television observation. Macallan gets a lot of good press from TV. Like don't get me wrong, it is like probably the best whiskey on the planet. Don't asterisk at me. I've got a bottle of Glenmorangie behind me. I'm aware. But what I would say is like it, Suits does it a lot. Suits, everyone is always drinking Macallan in Suits. Daredevil does it. Like it just, I don't know what deal Macallan have done with people that make television, but they're getting away with some pretty good advertising. That's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, that's a thing, isn't it? Like certain brands of alcohol, like just reappear in like television a lot, like as opposed to like other brands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. It stuck out of my brain. I was like, oh yeah, this is interesting. But yeah, I mean, the exact line he says is, "I've always felt more comfortable with the cheap stuff." And there's a part of me which is like, is he reacting to it so strongly? Because Elektra has resurfaced, and like would he normally have just taken this in stride, right? I don't know. It just got me thinking about that. Yeah.
No, that's I like that. It's like sort of trauma, basically. surfacing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like if you've had, okay, I guess we'll get to it when we get to the gym scene, because that's next? No, that's next episode, right? Yeah,
No,
because
this episode.
Is it?
I wrote down sexy fighting.
When does that happen? Do you remember?
Sorry, when does it happen?
Yeah, like in the episode. Is it before or after the curry? Don't remember.
Yeah, I think it's like the curry scene, and then it cuts to Elektra breaking the window.
That's right. Yeah. Yep, you're not wrong. Okay, well, Matt has this great line where he says, "I've lived here." He's talking about the city, because he's like, "I've never seen this place," and he says, "I've lived here my whole life, and the place never stops unfolding new secrets." And I went, I wonder if that's a hint of things to come. Vis-a-vis unfolding, vis-a-vis revealing, vis-a-vis whatever's buried under the city. Asterisk. Don't know where that's going yet. Have forgotten. Pretty sure it ties into the Defenders.
From my mind.
Can't remember. But okay? So I want to set up this like curry restaurant, because it's pretty sick. Like the world building here is so fucking good, man. Like I was saying to you, I don't know if this was last recording or if it was off microphone, but I've been reading a lot of Gene Wolfe recently. I've been rereading the Book of the New Sun, and there is a particular mode of world building that Gene Wolfe does that I think is pretty present in like modern kind of. This isn't a fantasy show, but it's in the superhero mode, and that obviously like it rests a lot atop the fantasy genre of like the 60s and 70s. And this restaurant is so interesting to me, just like at a formal level, right? So it's just a normal curry restaurant. It's like the cheap tables or whatever, but the ceiling is like dripping with these chili pepper like shaped lights. And that's what makes the place unique, presumably, and gives it its unique atmosphere. But Matt can't see that. And so instead, Karen explains it to him. And she's like, I know it's kind of cheesy, but it's pretty beautiful. And when she says that, they suddenly, like, something clicks. And they're suddenly no longer in this, like, awkward circling thing. And they have that complete moment of authentic connection. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence that happens. And then Matt takes his glasses off. Right, there's that extra level of intimacy, and like you said, we cut to then the past where, you know, Matt and Karen are all kind of like soft, like they're kind of like curves and vectors, and then you cut back to the past with Elektra, and it's all sharp edges and like conflict and friction. There's a real effortless. I keep using the word effortless contrast, but it is like there's a simple contrast put in place here where Matt and Karen are having this like what is like truly a romantic date, and you cut back to the past, and Elektra and Matt are beating the shit out of each other and then doing a sexy fight, like you said.
Yeah,
and we've all
it is such a sharp contrast. Like Karen is just such a like a kind and wonderful person. You know, just brings out the best qualities in Matt. And then Elektra is just, just like the complete opposite, just brings out the absolute, like, I mean, she, like, I don't want to say brings out the worst in Matt. She brings out the opposite qualities of Matt. She just like, I don't know, secretive, you know, a bit prideful, a bit like destructive. Yeah.
There's like an arrogance that she inspires in him that I like can't get over as well. He's like, she like brings out this like I am the master of reality kind of approach to everything, where he just thinks that he can like outmaneuver everyone. It's hey guys, if you listen, I think most people have had a relationship like this, or they know someone who has been in a relationship like this. Get the fuck out of it while you still can. Is my advice, because it's not gonna end well. Yeah, I mean like this, but I mean like in the now, like obviously the date's going super well. We get the most like, again, like I can't get over this. Matt is smiling so much. It's really fucking weird. He's such a he's just a guy that never smiles, and all he's doing this, during this date is smiling. It's especially after they have that moment where they click. And then yeah, I mean we already said it, but in the past, yeah, Matt. So Elektra basically like forces Matt to reveal that he can do big time kung fu. She has seemingly worked that out already. Do you remember how she deduces that? I know she throws something at him, but like, does she have a line where she explains how she worked that out?
No, she just like takes a swing at him and he dodges. I mean, from the context of the scene, he sort of implies that she took him there to test it, so this was like planned. And I mean, we kind of learn later why.
Yes. It's also notable that this is Fogwell's gym, right? This is his dad's gym.
Yeah.
Which is interesting with a capital I and his themes with a capital T. These are locations that mean something.
And it's interesting how she breaks the glass. Like, I don't know, it seems like that's something that he's not cool with, but he tolerates it just because I don't know, for reasons that are like he hasn't fully like self-actualized yet, like he's not like as confident as he is. He's not confident enough to like tell Elektra like, hey, I wish you didn't do that, And it's like the same kind of vibe when she's breaking glasses later on in Roscoe Sweeney's house. Matt seems like kind of uncomfortable with it, like just how destructive she is. And it's as if he's like trying to convince himself like, yeah, no, I'm cool with this, when really he's not.
That is really well observed. I hadn't really made that connection. Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is like that glass that she breaks is the glass that says Fogwell's gym, right? That's the framing device that we often enter the gym through, is Matt opening the door and us seeing that glass. She's literally breaking the thing which like describes like his father's gym. It is like the title for the place.
It's because like Matt makes some comments about it or something. He's like, he says something like, oh, we might get arrested for breaking and entering. Like, I can't remember. I feel like I remember him making some sort of like snide sort of comment about it. Yeah.
Sounds like Matt. Or he makes a comment about like breaking and entering, or like that he'll have to pay for that as well. Or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which it's like, well, no, because of course she's gonna pay for it because she's fucking rich. Like, yeah, it's I mean, the other thing that's happening here too, which we said last time, is you can feel these, like, I think particularly at the end of this date, right? You can feel Matt's entire life reaching this balancing point where it's like it feels like half of his life is going super well and the other half is like waiting to go completely wrong, which I know is something that we've spoken about a little bit before. I have like a character drama question that I want to raise. I know in the plot literally why this happens, but at a character drama level, so Matt and Karen have this really, really incredible date, and they have like I said, the most authentic kind of parting of ways. They get into some like hot and heavy making out on the stoop, and Matt does the thing that Matt always does, which is she's like, you could come up, and he's like, I think if we stop now, tonight can be perfect. I've written down here, Matt delivers a line about tonight being perfect and stopping before it goes too far. And I've literally done this exact same thing before. Oh no, am I Matt Murdock?
You might be.
Oh no.
You're always unavailable at night, so
it
might be putting on the pajamas.
It's famously true. Famously unavailable in the evenings. I just thought that was interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Just for me, I had one of those. When you're watching something, you have like a brief moment of like interior reflection where you're like, "Am I making good choices?"
Yeah, I hate when that happens.
Then he goes to Elektra's penthouse, and that was the character drama question I wanted to raise, which is like, what is he like hoping to achieve here?
At the very end of the episode?
Yeah, like why does he go to Elektra's place?
Um, uh, I forgot. Like from a literal perspective, I forgot.
That this is my point about this little maneuver is like I don't know that there is a literal like plot reason. Because she calls him during dinner and he's like, "Fuck off, I'm busy." And she's like, "We'll just come to the penthouse later." We don't know why. Like we don't know what she is like needs from him, right? So from a character drama perspective, he's on a date with this girl that is going incredibly well. Gets his phone call, doesn't really know what she wants, lets the date end perfectly, and then I went, oh, did he not go up because he knew that he wanted to go visit Elektra, or was it because he meant it? Was he being honest when he said we could leave it be perfect? And then he turns up at Elektra's place, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, and it's suddenly like it just gets really tangled in itself, right?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to sort of think about like he has this compulsion to like for risk and to just sort of like just pick the most chaotic option. Yeah.
I mean, Foggy has that line later where he says like, you act like all of this is happening to you.
Yeah.
But like, you're the fucking you're the problem, man. Like, you're the issue here.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's not wrong, but he's also not right. I mean, like, Elektra has no respect for his boundaries whatsoever. So like at a certain point, I don't know if we can fully blame Matt, but like, don't go to a penthouse after the perfect date with the girl of your dreams. Just go home.
It is a bit weird. It's a bit weird. I won't lie. Yeah.
But look, it's good character drama. It's good stuff.
It is.
Makes you think, Pat. Makes you think. Yeah, great episode. Look, is there anything else that you want to touch on before we take a quick pause and jump into the next two?
Well, we didn't talk about the Matt's decision to not kill Roscoe.
Yeah, okay. The only reason I didn't really note anything down is like I don't really have much to say about it. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit hard to talk about without talking about like spoilers, but it's the start of like understanding Elektra more deeply. I feel like this is more about Elektra than it is about Matt, honestly. It raises the question, well, why does Elektra want? Why does Elektra have like this? Ecstasy sort of feeling when she's in this moment where it seems like Matt might kill Roscoe Sweeney. Like, why is she trying to compel him to do it? Like, what does she get out of it? And it explains, once you find that out, those reasons, it explains so much about like all her actions throughout these next few episodes, including this scene. Yeah. Just take note of it is all I'll say.
Patrick will remember this. I mean, to quickly set it up. I mean, so yeah, they break into this place. Elektra does this easy lie where she's like, oh yeah, it's like a business dude and he's away, and they break into this house. And like you said, she's breaking all of these glasses as she's doing this little speech about nice things. They do this. This show is so stylish. Matt is like pouring a glass of champagne while she's breaking champagne glasses. She then pours a glass of whiskey, and then they swap drinks. Very, very stylish. And he's like, "Why have you brought me here?" And then she reveals that it's Sweeney's come here. She ties him up, and yeah, she basically provokes Matt and is like, you know. This dude killed your dad. You should kill him. And he of course is like, no, I refuse. And yeah, then they kind of part ways. But it's a really I don't know what the word I would use here other than I don't have a lot to say about it because it's just kind of putting this here. This is one of those moments that will become recursive thematically. where there will be things that keep happening in the next couple episodes and probably throughout the rest of the season that will make us think about this scene more. Like, this isn't a scene that inherently by itself, on your first watch, you go, oh, okay, he didn't kill Sweeney. But like you said, the more you learn about Elektra and the more you learn about her relationship to Matt and to Redacted, you start to go, oh, there is a lot more here happening than I thought. And that's kind of, it's one of those things that the story will keep calling us back to think about. But in its initial presentation, it is exactly what it is, which is she's pressuring Matt to kill him. He won't do it. Scene. But there is, like you said, we'll be coming back to this, I think, a lot in our next recording session, is my intuition.
Yeah, even in this initial presentation, though, like, it's there are some interesting beats. Like, for example, like, this is the peak of their love. There's a beat where she's cutting cheese using Matt as a cutting board, and, you know, like, sort of implying that there's like a lot of like trust there at this particular moment, which is, you know, not, I wouldn't say heartbreaking, but it's you know, the decision to leave Elektra and to part ways, it gives it a bit more gravity, I feel. And there's just a lot of cool blocking and just choreography going on with Matt catching like the jar of pickles, for example, like, you know, stuff he can't see, you know, using his powers just for like random things. Yeah, I don't know, there's quite a bit of thought in this one sequence, I feel. Yeah.
You've just made me think about you kind of said there, like, you know, this is like the peak of their relationship, and there's an intimacy here, but it doesn't feel healthy. Like, it is charged, yes, but like this doesn't feel like a good, I don't know how else to say it, like, this doesn't feel good for them to be behaving like this.
It's literally destructive. Like, they're just destroying the glasses and stuff. Like, could not be more in your face.
Yeah. Did you guys want to be any more literal about it?
Yeah.
But that's also part of the kind of thing that this show is able to do, which is like, you don't sit there and go, man, wasn't it destructive that they broke those glasses? It just sort of washes over you as they go through this choreography. And that also comes back to what we were saying before about like this is such a, as I was saying before, like, these characters get to disassemble here into their previous selves, and like you get to see a part of Matt that exists after Stick, before the Matt that we know now, and like this kind of bridging mechanism of Elektra at this particular interval in his life. So after he's met Foggy, before Nelson and Murdock, before Daredevil, I think it's like, it's noteworthy that this is probably the most he has used his powers in a while. Because after he finishes training with Stick, which is, you know, he's pretty young, because Stick ditches him when he gives him the bracelet. Like, this is also an opportunity for him to finally be himself around someone else. For the first time in a long time. And so that's part of, like, I think the attraction there, or perhaps the way to say it is, that's part of the allure of this relationship for him. There is a lust for the freedom to just disabuse himself of any responsibility whatsoever and just be fully in this moment with this person who, like, effectively, like, lives in a world with no consequences. And I think there's something about that which Matt kind of is drawn to.
I mean, like, revealing that you have kind of superhero powers must be pretty thrilling, you know? Like, yeah, obviously that has an attraction and an allure. Like, who wouldn't?
Yeah, it's a little bit less exciting to reveal that you have media crit powers. People don't. That's less exciting.
They just sort of look at you funny and go, "Oh, okay."
They go, "Oh, so you don't get out the house much then, huh?" Someone once described, I can't think of who it was, but someone was like, "Oh yeah, like ZeroIndent, it's a really indoor people kind of network," and I was like, "Yeah, that's accurate."
indoor people.
Yeah, it's like, yeah,
That's
okay.
that's the nicest way of like calling someone like an internet hermit.
I know. Look, I go out. I go out a lot, and I don't go online. I'm even worse than like an internet hermit. I'm like a hermit. You know?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. You don't fuck all about the internet. So,
True. Yeah. I'm all about them books, guys. Okay. Look, let's take a quick break here. And we will then come back and we will talk about the next 2 episodes. Yeah, I mean, I think that first episode, these next 2 are really one story kind of. So these 3 really represent like this is the introduction to Elektra, and then this is the okay, now what about Frank kind of 2 episodes, while also continuing the thread of Elektra as like the oppositional force to that, in a very real way. So we'll be right back, and. Yeah, I mean, I assume this will be probably an advertisement for the amazing T-shirts that we now have for Daredevil the details, but I don't know because I haven't edited the episode yet, because that's how time works. We'll be right back in a sec to talk about the next 2 episodes. If you enjoy what we do, the best way to support us is to head to underink.press and grab a T-shirt. We have the Daredevil in the details branded pocket tee. We've got some main art trait shirts that have got kind of different phrases from each book, that are really cool. You can head to underink.press, grab a t-shirt. It helps support what we do. You get some cool fashion threads, and these are sustainable heavyweight fabric. They're designed to last 10, 20 years. This is a t-shirt that you're going to buy and you're going to be able to wear for a very long time. You can head to underink.press to help support us. Otherwise, consider giving us a rating or a review on your podcast catcher or platform of choice. Thanks so much. All right, welcome back. We are going to talk now about Season 2, Episode 6, Regrets Only, which is Episode 19 of Daredevil. It was written by Sneha Kaur and directed by Andy Goddard. He's back. Let's hear the old summary.
Matt and Elektra deal with the Yakuza easily. At breakfast the morning after, Matt tentatively agrees to help her discover their plot. Matt, Karen, and Foggy intend to take on Frank Castle's case when they learn he faces the death penalty. They head to the hospital to meet with Frank. Matt outplays Reyes. Karen forms an unexpected connection. Later, Elektra drags Matt to a gala at Roxxon where they commit corporate espionage to obtain an encoded ledger. Foggy waits in front of Matt's apartment and reveals that Reyes has expedited People v. Frank Castle, presumably to keep the gang off balance. The trial starts in a week and the clock begins to tick.
You know, if the last episode was like hyper dense plot stuff and theme stuff, this episode is very plot light and just like very interested in like theme and like big kind of thematic swings at stuff, but like not a lot really happens necessarily.
Yeah. I actually didn't write down too many notes for this episode, because I was just mainly kind of like enjoying the dialogue. Like it's legal procedure and legal drama. Which I fucking love.
Yeah, I kind of had the same issue where I had to kind of at the end of it be like, what do I even have to say about this? Because it's just so enjoyable. The first note I've written down is, Pat, is the Japanese at the start any good?
Who was talking?
The Yakuza dudes.
The head guy, he's clearly not a native speaker. Like the older dude. And some of the henchmen, but some of them. Oh, actually, the beginning ones on the motorbikes, right? They seemed like native speakers.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
This is just gonna be every time someone speaks Japanese, my notes will say, Patrick, good.
It is interesting because it varies so much.
Yeah, I guess that just must be like who's available on the day, right?
And the who's the white dude that speaks Japanese? His Japanese is actually pretty good.
Oh, the accountant. Yeah. I love that. So I mean, to set this up, so we didn't say, did we? Oh, we did in the summary. But Matt goes up to Elektra's penthouse. And she's like, yeah, the Yakuza are coming, and then she opens the gym bag and she has the Daredevil costume. Which is the detail that we somehow forgot to mention. I know it was in the summary, but yeah, so they take on these Yakuza dudes. One of my favorite details of this is the head dude watches the entire fight in like full chill mode until he decides to help. He's just like sitting on the bench chilling.
Yeah.
It's extremely good.
In the apartment?
Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah, he just sits on the kitchen bench, like watching the fight happen until like all of his guys get
that's
gone.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I mean, they deal with this pretty easily. It's always cool to see Daredevil fight with a partner. I don't know. We just see it so infrequently. It's fun. The breakfast the next morning made me think a lot about like Elektra's affectation again. I talked about it a little bit before, but like it was even more pronounced here. She has this like peppiness and like brattiness that like just like it's really grating against like Matt's sort of or like disarming to Matt's kind of terse thing that he has. Like she just doesn't react to anything he says properly. You know, he's like, you know, I'm not fucking doing this, that, or the fifth thing, and she's like, yeah, okay, but you will though. Like, that's just yeah, she just does not engage with him at his level at all.
I think it sort of borders on like being a bit corny for me. I don't know, it's still all right, but like it's almost there.
Yeah, they do walk up to the line multiple times, and they will fully cross it later on, but for now at least it sort of sits in nice tension.
I was gonna say I like at the end of that scene where Matt tells her to leave the waitress the biggest tip she's ever seen. It's a nice detail.
I also like the she's like, I have one condition. He's like, what's that? She's like, you need to give me that pie back.
Yeah.
I was also gonna say like her just like this. I love the way that Matt is so like self-serious that even at breakfast he's like not eating, even though probably he needs to eat.
Yeah, that's true.
It's so good. She's eating. If you go back and look at that scene, she's eating fully like just non-breakfast shit. Like she's got like a plate of breakfast. She's eating like some French fries and shit. She's got some fruit. She's got some pie. Like
she's hungry.
Yeah, I mean, she just fought a bunch of fucking
living her best life.
Fucking ninjas, bro. Like I'd be hungry too.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you? Okay. So Karen is being questioned by Frank's attorney, like the public attorney, and the gang kind of collectively decide. Matt and Karen pressure Foggy into agreeing to try and take on Frank's case because he will be tried for the death penalty. Reyes is pushing for the death penalty. And Matt kind of like, by way of Karen, decides they should intervene. Doesn't think that it's the court's job to decide when people should die. Like that's not how justice works. It is in fact, you know, up to God or whatever. Is his usual spiel. What do you make of this? Like, what is this doing for you? What do you find yourself thinking about when we kind of put this in conversation with Elektra putting Sweeney in that chair instead of Matt resisting that? Well, like, where does all of this kind of what does all of this start to call your attention to?
It starts to reveal Matt's like bias a bit, and that he's like a bit of a hypocrite, because the bias is because like he wants because he has a connection with Frank. You know, he talked with him at the graveyard about his family and stuff. But also just the fact that like even when it's going through like the proper like legal system, he says no, that's wrong. Like you know, like what the fuck, like that's your whole thing, buddy. That's the like it's your whole gimmick when you're not in your pajamas, when you're in the suit. Like that's, you know, your whole moral compass is based around, yeah, no, we've got to do things by the law. And now you're saying the law's not good enough. Yeah.
And then also he's so invested in drawing a line between himself and Elektra that he forgets that he is like drawing himself on the same line as Frank here. Like he's grouping himself in with Frank while trying to distance himself from Elektra, while also I had the same note as you, which you were just talking about, which is like, I think if we were talking about secrets and mysteries before, the mystery of why Matt is helping is so productive for me here. Like you said, is it to avoid precedent? Because Foggy calls this out later. He's like, are you just trying to like avoid precedent for vigilantes because you're worried this will happen to you?
Yeah.
Is it to stop someone from being executed because that's like against God's will? Is it to like make himself feel better about Elektra because she's here? Like you said, is it because he connected with Frank and cares for him? We said last time that this part of the story is thinking about redemption. This feels to me like Matt trying to like do a really big swing in the right direction to try and make up for the fact that he knows what he's doing with Elektra is probably bad and probably going to get him in trouble. Like he's got a really big weight that's about to fall on one side of the scale. He's like, quick, I'll just do the most impossibly good thing on the other to try and like outweigh it.
Yeah, the decisions he makes in this episode and the next one have a tone of like desperation about them, because of what you're saying. Because he's in like some sort of moral jeopardy, and his knee jerk reaction to that is to just like take the most impossibly like morally gray case and like trying to put it in absolute terms, yeah.
It's a really great there's something I really like, which is I can't think of who said it, but it's probably Young, which I know we all hate Young, but he was talking about me and all my homies hate Jungian philosophy. But he's talking about when people are backed up against the wall, or they feel like that something that they care about is threatened. Their tolerance for injustice is like really heightened, and like your awareness of injustice is really heightened. This is what that feels like for Matt here. Like you said, he is in this desperate, and like in no small part, it's like you said before that he's sort of compelled with Elektra in some sense, and like this feels like the counter compulsion in the like it feels like he's trying to offset that compulsion with another compulsion, which is like trying to solve a drinking problem by taking pain medication. Like you're just doing it's schematically the same thing. It just takes a different form. The law procedural stuff here fucking rules. I love to see bureaucracy and maneuvers like this and systems being used against each other. Matt, they go to the hospital basically to go talk to Frank and convince him to let them become his legal counsel. And Reyes tries to intervene. And Matt pulls this like checkmate law procedural maneuver where he basically like he reveals that he has worked out that the DA's office was pulling strings to get Frank killed. And they were trying to use Grotto to cover it up. And he basically says to Reyes, like, and it's funny, because I get the impression that, like, our case files on the Grotto thing, they're pretty solid. I wonder if you guys did such a good job cleaning up after yourselves. And you get that instant moment of, like, oh, shit, yeah, like, if Reyes pushes back on this, they can basically undo her career and bring this into the light. And it, again, like you get this, like when Matt is present and doing this stuff, he is a really effective attorney. And it's just like, man, if you got your shit together, you'd be a really good lawyer.
I think how it went was that Reyes is trying to block them from representing Frank because there's a conflict of interest because they represented Grotto. And then Matt was like, do you have the evidence of that? Because if you did, that would incriminate you because you broke a Witpro whatever contract and endangered our client. So yeah, it's really cool maneuvering of words.
It's good. We love to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm thinking a lot about like schematic structures this episode. It's also because like I'm in like the last structural edits of book 3, so I'm thinking a lot about this stuff anyway. But I think there is something notable here about Frank zeroing in on Karen and connecting with Karen, a person who Matt is very close to, after Frank had connected with Daredevil, and had made that connection and had that vulnerability. It's these are both people that Frank seems to intuitively know will understand him in some way, and are on the other side of the line that he has crossed in some sense. And so I'm wondering if, like, is he connecting with these two people because they represent some sort of possibility of redemption, right? Does he see them as people that can view him as still a person, even though he feels like his entire life is over? And I was also wondering, like, does Karen find Frank compelling for similar reasons she finds Matt so compelling? She seems inexplicably bound to men who exist in, like, a state of perpetual moral jeopardy. I don't know. There's something happening there, like a maneuver. There's a maneuver happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that is something I wasn't sure about. What is Frank's compulsion toward, like, toward Karen? Is it that, like, well, I mean, it sort of gets explained, I guess, when Frank says, well, Karen essentially helps him remember details about his past and stuff when his killing spree was, like, more or less, a coping mechanism to forget, or to just, like, pretend that it, I don't know, just to pretend that it didn't exist. And Karen is someone who's all about truth, and therefore he can. There's something about, like, not necessarily a redemption of his soul, but, like, a redemption of his mind, maybe, like a redemption of, like, what's real, and which is tangentially kind of related to, like, a battle for your soul, I suppose. And Frank's just this very no nonsense kind of, like, he believes the dirt that he can feel under his feet kind of guy, and Karen is sort of, there's some sort of, like, parallels there with Karen, I feel. I don't know.
Yeah,
their relationship is so interesting. It's interesting, especially because it carries over to the Punisher as well.
Yeah,
like his own show. Yeah.
There's like a Frank is such an interesting character here, because, like, you never really know what he's thinking and feeling and, like, why he's doing things. And I think sometimes people levy that as, like, a criticism of, like, text. But I think it really depends on the character, right? Because I think that Frank becomes this guy who, like you said, it's sort of in this scene, he's in this mode of, like, of maybe not reclamation, because that's at this point still seems so far away for him, but he's in this mode of, like, recollection, or, like, he's, like, re-remembering that there are parts of him that are still a person. He has obliterated himself in service of this mission. That's kind of what, that's the underlying thing that he's trying to explain to Matt at the end of that first kind of 4-episode arc, is, like, he unmade himself in the image of the way losing his family unmade him. Like, he rendered himself into that oblivion to become the Punisher, to serve justice, or to achieve revenge. And, your mileage there is going to vary. And here it's like Karen reminds him, like, there are things in the world other than just the dirt beneath your feet. He even says, he's telling a story about his son, and he says, I guess we need that. We need to get it. We need to get away sometimes. And there's it really is sort of the first stirring of, hey, there's a person under here still. And he doesn't really know what to do with that yet for himself. God damn. It's like, it's so good. This episode is so good. The dialogue is so good. It's great, and you can really feel Andy Goddard come back here a little bit, just with that directorial style where it really lets the dialogue happen in very kind of natural ways. There's the Frank stuff in particular. We already said this before, but that performance is so it none of these characters in this episode feel like they're doing a speech to anybody at any given time. We do get that a little bit with Foggy next episode, but yeah, it's really really good stuff.
I think I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. Speaking of Foggy though, like there's some good sort of acting chops going on here when his relationship with Matt starts to get strained. When they're talking in that room, and then Matt gets the call, that guy goes, "Oh, you have a car waiting for you." I don't know, like Foggy when he's like annoyed and angry is like it's actually pretty good. Like it's a pretty compelling performance. I won't lie.
I think it's because there's nothing. How do I say this? I think for me at least, it's compelling because he isn't a big, dramatic, angry, brooding guy. There's something like comical in his frustration, or like not comical, but like it's so unburdened by like a grim, dark personality that he just gets to have frustration on the surface. Like there's no, I don't know what I'm trying to say. You kind of get what I'm saying. Like he can be very direct in a way that other characters can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, you feel really, really bad pissing someone like Foggy off because he's just like, what has this guy ever done to you? Nothing. He's only ever been like good and supportive of you, and the fact that like he so clearly communicates that like you're letting him down. It's just like, oh man, I feel really shitty.
Yeah,
as Matt should.
He so clearly tells him as well.
Yeah.
And then the best part about it as well is like this is happening in a room with Matt's girlfriend, and you're like, oh man, like come on, this is not a good look for you, bud. Not a good look for you at all. It's good stuff.
And then him and Karen kiss, and then Foggy has a moment. He's like, "Whoa, is this happening?"
It's so funny. That was what I was gonna say. The next thing that happens is Foggy freaks the fuck out because he's like, "Wait a minute, hold on, what the fuck?"
And then the camera lingers on him when they exit and they go to the elevator, which I thought was interesting. Like they take a beat to focus on Foggy's emotions.
You think,
yeah.
and you go like, okay, what is he thinking about? Is he thinking about the fact that he had a thing for Karen? Is he thinking about the fact that Matt is Daredevil and he's wondering if he's told Karen? Is he thinking about like, fuck, this is gonna make work really complicated? Like, what is Foggy thinking about in that moment? Or is he just thinking, I can't fucking believe he's leaving? And I love this show for not telling us.
I don't know. I think, it is. I think it's maybe all of those things, but just like so much different things, like so much chaos happening.
I've written down here as a general rule, don't go to expensive parties with your ex-girlfriend. This is just like that's free life advice. Because she's like, hey, so he gets into the car and he's like, you can't just fucking summon me. I have a life. And as he's saying this, you're like, nah, she fully can. She just did though. Like it's sort of,
yeah.
It's like, no, I think she can. I think you'll find that's not right, Matt Murdock. This woman can fully do that, and you will jump every time she asks you to.
Well, it's because she always has some sort of like important reason. If it's important, like he starts to leave, and then she's like, "All right, no, for real though, I do have like a lead on the Yakuza," and he's like, "Oh, okay." So I mean, really, it doesn't take much, but to convince Matt, but you do have to have some sort of city-threatening villain.
Yeah, you do. You know, as long as the Yakuza are involved, he'll be there.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I want to foreclose this. We keep saying Yakuza, and that's because characters in the story believe that's who these people are. I don't want to say anything more than that, but I just know that someone will be like, actually, but like because the characters believe this, I don't want to like I just don't accidentally reveal where this goes, but we do get a hint of it at at the end of this episode where the boss guy, the boss of Roxxon, says to the accountant's like, I've always respected the Yakuza, and he goes, what makes you think that I'm Yakuza? Which is a very nice little.
Isn't it kind of like the Yakuza is like a front? It's like, Sturgo and the Templars kind of situation.
Oh, for sure. I don't. Maybe, or there's like a fully different bunch of guys that are actually Yakuza. Like I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I guess we'll find out. Yeah. Okay. So to explain quickly, so setting this up, Matt and Elektra go to this big fancy party at Roxxon. They get dressed up. Matt plays the blind card in order to spill red wine on the accountant. Then he knocks him out, steals his key card, and they go and do a big corporate espionage mission where they're dodging people and they're ducking in and out of meeting rooms and shit.
The accountant guy he's quite polite when Matt spills the wine on him, which I thought was like, I don't know why, it just really stuck with me. How nice he was about it.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah,
it's a pretty funny like. I love in this show, they do this a lot whenever Matt does the blind card, where someone is like he will do some shitty something, and someone is winding up to really have a go at him, and then you keep going like, look up, just quickly look up, and then they finally look up and they're like, oh shit, sorry. It's really good stuff. Also like, I don't know how I feel about Matt playing the blind card here. This feels a bit like, I don't know, man. This that's a little disrespectful, I think.
What, to blind people?
No, to pretend that you're a dumb blind guy that can't see anything. I don't know. There's something about it which I just went, come on, man.
Well, I mean, he's tricking a guy who's pretending to not be a criminal. So like,
yeah, sticks and stones, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. Meanwhile, this is happening. We have the indictment hearing with Frank, where basically like he's gonna put into the record his plea. Karen and Foggy are trying to find an angle on it. They can't really find anything because he won't let them do PTSD because he thinks it's disrespectful to people that actually have it. And they managed to convince him that he should plead guilty. And they've got it down to 1 life sentence with the potential of parole in 25 years. And they all get into the room on the record. And Frank says, I plead not guilty. You hear that, witch? I'm going to watch you burn along with me. And I went, fucking get him. Let's go. That rules. And it's the way he says it too. Like it's so good.
And then Reyes's like death stare is pretty intense too.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's like Reyes is someone you don't want to fuck with, but Frank is someone you don't want to fuck with even more. So
also, Frank doesn't give a shit is the other thing. He's like, whatever, come at me, bro. Like, oh, you want to go? Let's fucking go. I killed like 1,000 dudes. What do you fucking know about it? It's great. And I guess so his motivation here, right, is Karen is pretty sure that the DA's office orchestrated or pulled the strings of or is responsible for in some capacity Frank's family being killed. And presumably them also trying to kill him because he was supposed to die, right? In that same incident. And they had that DNR get signed, and he only escaped because he convinced that doctor to take him home. And then that doctor obviously got fired, who was the janitor that we met previously. So like, Karen's like, Karen is kind of going, hey, if we do this case with you, we should be able to find out the truth about why that happened and what was happening with all of that stuff. Which obviously is what the Punisher show is about. But that's kind of his motivation here, it seems like, is if they go to trial, there's a larger potential for them to work out the truth. Or you could read it as like Frank just really wanting to stick it to Reyes and just get a rise out of her and piss her off. Or it's like, he's doing it because he's an insane guy that has a hole in his brain or whatever. Like there's a lot of ways that you can kind of come at this. And your mileage is going to vary. I mean, for me, I think it's like it's a mix of the first two as a motivation. And Frank doesn't seem like an impulsive guy to me a lot of the time, and so you gotta think that like he's agreed to, he said to them, yeah, I'll plead guilty, to get Reyes into a position where she's not ready for him to reverse this position. Like, he does like the reverse Uno card, right? It's a particular sort of maneuver from Frank that we haven't really seen before. He's very much not in this mode of politic, and so for me, this is very much more that personal. I'm doing this for me and to work out what happened to my family. And like you said, because he's just in this mode of recollecting and being able to remember that he has a family and that there is a possibility of this kind of future. It's
Karen is probably partly to blame for this.
Yeah, Foggy picks up on that immediately. He's like, "What the fuck did you say to him?" Yeah. I mean, she fully is, right? Like, if she hasn't performed this intervention of the particular conversations they have and the digging that she's doing in the background that no one knows about, this doesn't happen. He pleads guilty and this goes away. Separate to that, back in the big corporate espionage, Matt cracks a safe, which is extremely cool, and was a thing that, like, the second it started happening, I went, oh, I would have never thought to put that in my show. That's sick as fuck.
Yeah.
Because of course he can. Like, it's cool. But it doesn't have whatever they need. And then he like, there's like electrical current running through a wall, and then they realize that she twists a bonsai tree, and then the fake room opens up, and they go in and they get the ledger, which is very cool. You're also watching this whole thing, and like, as they're sneaking through the corridors, Matt is like, pulling her back so she doesn't walk in front of guards and stuff. The whole time watching this, I went, how the fuck would she have done this without him? Like, he is really doing a lot of heavy lifting here.
She just would have punched her way through, probably.
That is, you know what? You're not wrong. She doesn't seem like the subtle type.
No,
she's
really good at acting drunk, though.
Yeah, that was impressive. Where she's like dropping her shoes, and he's like, "Could you keep your shit together, please?" It's good. I also like, there's some little stuff that the little details here are great. There's a shot where they are fighting some dudes through like frosted meeting room glass, and we're on the outside. There's never a moment where the show doesn't find interesting visual language for itself. And like I said at the start, you can really feel Andy Goddard's touch here. Like, this is just the most Daredevil episode as far as like visuals. That shot through the frosted glass, the kind of blaring red emergency lights, Frank's hospital room with the red tape around it, like the perimeter, which you're not supposed to cross. The particular interior geometric squares that kind of run through the ballroom in Roxxon Energy, the ways in which the bar is stylized, it's all just very on point.
Yeah, it's a nice looking episode for sure.
And of course, the other little details which well, maybe go like Jesus, which is, so they get away with the ledger, and the boss dude drags in the accountant, and it's a very quick shot, but he's closing the box that was from inside the safe, and it's a box full of fingers. And I went, oh, oh no, this is not a good guy.
Well, do you know what that's about? It's like, when Yakuza members fail their leader, they have to cut off their finger.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, that's why those guys were like tying their pinky. Because they were expecting like, I failed, so I'm gonna have to cut off my pinky finger.
Well, thank God they didn't. Because
the reason.
Okay, no, yeah, go.
Yeah, they just got shot in the head.
They just got shot.
The reason that you have to cut off your pinky is because that's where the strongest part of your grip is when you're holding a katana.
Interesting. There you go. A bit of real world lore right there.
Yeah, which isn't very practical for the modern Yakuza. It's more symbolic because obviously they're not fucking fighting with katanas. They're just shooting pistols.
Yeah.
But you don't want to cut off your actual trigger finger because you want to actually use a gun still.
Yeah, that would make you very unhelpful. I don't think you could pull
Yeah.
a trigger with a pinky. I don't know. That doesn't seem practical to me. There's a really good sequence in Book of the New Sun where Wolf is talking about like symbols, and he's talking about like the ways in which we think we make symbols, but in fact they make us. And there's like a feedback loop when it comes to like symbolism and like emblems. And I always think about that stuff with traditions like that where their practicality has been completely disregarded in favor of a purely like gestural apparatus. Like there's no reason for them to cut their pinkies off anymore. But that is the reason, is that it doesn't have a practical application, which inherently gives it meaning and creates a reason. Like there's a way in which like the negative space of that action creates positive space, which creates meaning, which makes it have a reason to exist. It's just a very cool like thing to be thinking about when it comes to like both reality and art, and the way that like we produce meaning from things. It's
It also strengthens institutions and bureaucracies.
Yeah.
Which I've been reading a lot of Dune, and it's all fucking very concerned about that shit.
Oh boy. Yeah. The more Star Wars stuff that I learn and the more Star Wars stuff I read, the more I'm like learning about like the institutional rituals of like the Senate and the Old Republic and like all this stuff. And it just makes me go like, man, bureaucracy is so interesting. Like the ways in which like rules and frameworks are manipulated and not manipulated by certain people and certain parties to particular outcomes. The ways in which like certain practices are observed or not observed under certain conditions and how those are like used. It's all good stuff. We love thinking about systems here. And for me, I think when he says, "Who said I was the Yakuza?" Is putting itself in direct conversation with everything you were just talking about, where it's like, well, they're still doing some of these rituals. So what does that actually mean? If he's not Yakuza? And that comes back to what you said before, which is like, okay, but is it that the Yakuza is a front, or are they not Yakuza at all? And people are misapprehending that, or they're presenting themselves as Yakuza. Like, I don't know. It's interesting.
It's a convenient front for them to have. I mean, Japanese criminals, you don't want to... It takes a lot of work to start a new brand. So it's just like, yeah, fuck it, man. We're Yakuza,
That's true. It is not a... it's... gotta find a new name and new rituals. It's like a lot of work. What am I, made of time?
Looking up, like Yakuza in the copyright fucking book. It's like, oh, is this? Can we use this?
Those guys are already doing the cut and finger thing. Damn. The other thing that happens here at the end is, I just thought this was noteworthy. This episode ends. So Foggy's like, hey, the trial is next week. You need to like be here. Like, wherever the fuck you were, like, I need you to be here because the trial's starting next week. And then the episode ends with the title sequence music.
How does it end? Like, what's the scene about?
So Foggy's waiting outside Matt's apartment, and they have their little little exchange. And Foggy leaves, and it's just looking at Matt standing in the corridor, and then it starts playing the Daredevil theme from the opening credits, and then it cuts to credits.
Yeah, that's right. And he's like, yeah, because what did he say? Like the trial of the century is happening or something. Yeah. And
I think why play that music pack? Because I went, huh.
I don't know. Just generally, like from like a musical perspective, it's the sort of tone, the vibe it gives you is like sort of, foreboding, and it's like the beginning of something catastrophic, and which arguably, like, this legal court case is like kind of more significant than, a bunch of ninjas in a sense.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for me as well, it's that it's that dual lives thing that the credits are kind of about, and like the martyr thing, right? Where it's like this is the crescendo of, man, Matt really like keeps putting himself in this position where his two lives are competing with each other. Yeah, it's rough stuff for Matt Murdock, I feel. But also kind of his fault that he's in this position.
100% his fault.
No, really good episode.
Do not feel sorry for this man.
Do not feel PSA, do not feel sorry for this man. Yeah, really good episode. We're gonna take another quick break, and then we'll be jumping into season 2, episode 7, which is episode 20, Semper Fidelis. So we'll be right back to wrap up this kind of what I've been thinking of as the Elektra introduction arc. So yeah, we'll be back in 2 seconds.
Come on, that's enough. You've eaten enough. Talk.
Warm that up for you?
Huh? Don't tell me you're watching a figure.
We just fought the Yakuza.
And won.
You might have mentioned the Japanese mafia before butterfly knives started flying.
I told you I needed help.
You said you needed a lawyer.
All right.
Yeah, no shit. You've been lying since you got here. And that ends now. I want to know what you're doing back here. What's happening with the Yakuza. And I want to know how you know. I want to know how you know about me.
All right, welcome back. We are going to wrap up our discussion by talking about season 2, episode 7, which was written by Luke Calchu and directed by Ken Girotti. Patrick, could you please read us the summary?
Matt's double life catches up. He's late to Castle's trial. Foggy blunders through the opening statement. Matt and Karen prepare to cross-examine the chief medical examiner, who they are certain doctored the Castle family death certificates. Their faux work date fizzles to an awkward halt when Karen tacitly endorses the Punisher's justice, and Matt finds himself falling for yet another woman brave enough to face a truth he cannot. Before Matt can spring their maneuver, the ME reveals he was threatened into revealing the truth, making his testimony inadmissible. Matt and Foggy get into it, and Matt reveals Elektra is back. Matt confronts Elektra, and the two proceed to search an abandoned building. They discover the Yakuza are digging a hole, one impossibly deep, whose purpose can only be guessed. They are tunneling to the heart of Hell's Kitchen.
Crazy episode. That ending, I was like, what the fuck is going on?
It's such a left turn ending.
Talk about the genre switching this show does. I was like, god damn, like that's some fantasy shit right there. Like truly some fantasy sci-fi bullshit. Like just this giant hole. Crazy. I mean, we start this episode with a montage of jurors being interviewed during pre-interview, all with like varyingly extreme opinions of Frank. This is obviously sort of in conversation with, I guess, our characters and their opinions on what's happening, and kind of setting up the biggest challenge with this trial from a procedure perspective, which is everyone has an opinion about this. So how do you get a fair jury to do this trial? And of course, we get the judge who says, it's New York. Everyone has an opinion about everything, which I thought was pretty fun. It's good stuff.
I love how it's that scene where it cuts those people talking about their opinions. I wish I wrote down the example, but it was like someone going like, I think he should be locked behind bars because he's honestly like a crazy, and then the next person cuts in is like person who's doing the right thing kind of thing. Like, it's really cool.
Very, very stylish. And then we get this huge booming slow-mo shot of them bringing Frank in. And he is framed against the American flag, which then immediately cuts to credits. Yeah. And I was just like, God
it's
damn.
Such a good opening.
It's so good. I love the way that they're constantly reminding you, hey, this guy served in the military. What does all this mean? It's cool. I did note as well, like, this show isn't thinking about America ever. Like, it's really not thinking about like what is America. It's thinking about like what is Hell's Kitchen and like what is morality and justice and all these things. But like it really is, it is disinterested in thinking about the larger apparatus. The Punisher gets into this in its show, but I thought that was notable that like the flag there being so prominent is not to make us consider those things, but rather to remind us that Frank served in the military, right? Like it's a very particular sort of
Yeah.
maneuver.
It never calls your attention to like, you know, gun laws or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just that's a given. Like that's just the state of reality is that people can have guns, and like it never sort of explores that avenue of like, you know, the Punisher.
It's true. The other thing that's happening here is, I mean, okay, so the gang kind of has to divide and conquer here because they're pretty short on time. So Karen goes to talk to Frank. Matt is working on his opening statement, and Foggy is doing all the pre-trial research. Karen goes to the prison to go in for the hospital, or I think it's the courthouse, right? Because I'm assuming that he's being held in custody in the courthouse for the duration of the trial. And the little details here are cool. She's going through the security checkpoint, and they take the paper clips from her papers. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why they did that. Is it because Frank could use them as weapons? Is it because they can be used to pick locks? Is it because the DA ordered that security guard to kind of snoop at their papers? Like, I don't know. But it's like little details like that are so evocative for me. And really make this feel like it. I don't know why, but that makes it feel so much more fraught than if she just went through the scanner. I don't know. The filmmaking here is really on point.
Yeah, yeah. There's always stuff like that in these I don't know. It's interesting whenever you can tell that like writers have a good breadth of knowledge about the subjects that they're tackling and like the world that these institutions exist in and stuff like that. Like for example, you know, you know when you're watching a movie that the writer has no idea about like programming or something when there's like a scene, you know, like a hacking scene or something like that. It's nice when you feel that you feel like you can trust that the writers know what they're talking about.
I mean, especially like we were talking about with the last episode, right? Where it's all about the law and like the bureaucracy and the levers that you can pull. It's very interested in those details and that minutia. Yeah. The other thing that I was thinking about here too is Karen is kind of like, I don't know the right language for this, but Karen is increasingly, if there was a version of reality where she was a receptionist, it's been a long time since we lived in that reality. Like she is basically doing the work of like a paralegal or a lawyer at this point. Like she is effortlessly become almost an equal to Nelson and Murdock. Yeah.
I mean, Matt says later this episode, like, have you considered law school? She's well equipped.
I have so many thoughts about that. That's such a weird thing anyway, we'll get to it. That's such a weird thing to say. Yeah, I mean, Matt, this is where I've written down. Matt is working on his opening statement. He's wearing a red tie, and the Elektra calls him. And I was just like, why is he wearing red? And that was what we've already talked about it, but I still that was noteworthy. And I think that this is where I was like, the show is doing something here. So Matt has a partner that he's working with as Daredevil. He's got Elektra that he's working with in the streets. He's got Foggy as his legal partner, and then he's got Karen as his like partner. And like there's this just like isometric kind of mirroring here where like it's a problem that all of those things are happening at the same time. They seem to be inherently in conflict. There is some kind of conflict that is created or produced by Karen and Matt being together for Foggy and Matt's relationship. There is conflict produced by Matt and Elektra's partnership for Foggy and Matt, and there is conflict produced for Matt and Karen's relationship by Matt and Foggy knowing about Daredevil and the secret together. And there is also conflict produced for Matt and Karen because of Matt and Elektra. And like it just, these things are so there's like all of these things are problems for each other. They're all in competition with each other, and there's no clear single priority for Matt, which I think is it's kind of what I was talking about last recording session, which is the show is really good at having scenes and moments where there's never a single clear priority of what the scene is trying to get at, and instead, each time you rewatch it, you're gonna think about the different priorities as they're kind of happening, and like they're all in multiple competition, but there's no single primary priority.
Yeah, the show brings all those conflicts up so naturally in the dialogue, and yeah, they're not always like to a point in that particular scene or sequence. It's just like, it's just sort of telling you like how messed up and how chaotic Matt's life is, like all the time, constantly. Which is why like every scene is it's really so compelling. Just like, man, this guy, there's so much conflict, so much juicy conflict.
The word you use that I think is really like spot on is like, it's so charged. Everything is so charged in his life at seemingly all times, except for like 10 minutes of a couple weeks ago when everything was going right.
yeah, true. Yeah, well, so like I think it is. That's why it's so deliberate at the beginning of this season, showing how it's a time where he actually does manage to balance both of his lives.
Yeah,
and like. Yeah, it's just like so relevant to like what's going on now. It's just like the complete opposite.
And I think that's like that's going to be a lot about it's going to be a lot of what the show is about moving forward. It's like we've alluded to this before, but like season 3 is then really thinking about like, okay, but what after all of that? And I kind of like this idea here that like in this season, this is the most comic book the show has ever been, but it's also the most like it's the largest for me it's like the largest moment in this story where there are so many possibilities of where this could go. That's part of why I wrote the summary that way with Matt and Karen. This feels like a moment where like the story could go in so many different directions from this integer, right? Like the available vectors for where they take it are kind of like they feel infinite. The possibility space here feels infinite, right? Will Matt and Karen stay together and make it work? Will, in particular of note in a second, which we'll get to, like, is Matt gonna cheat with Elektra? Like, what is happening there? What's happening with Foggy? Is Nelson and Murdock gonna stay together? What if they lose the trial? Their careers will be over. Or if they win the trial, what does that mean? There's just like so many possibilities, possible outcomes, that it makes everything feel charged, even if it's something small.
Yeah.
Karen,
it's a good way of putting it.
So yeah, I mean, we said already she goes to visit Frank, and they have a pretty normal exchange, and then she's back at the office with Foggy. And she explains to him, hey, he's not going to go for the PTSD thing. And Foggy's like, God damn it, like this guy's making it so much harder than it needs to be. And she says this, which I wanted to raise because I'm interested in your thoughts. She says, be frank for a minute. Imagine being solely fueled by a single cluster of seconds, one moment in your entire life. And every time you close your eyes, you relive the moment. And every time you reopen them, you have the briefest peace before you realize that nightmare is real and nothing has changed. She says this to Foggy about Frank. But it's also kind of descriptive of like a lot of these characters, right? Like this is such an evocative line.
Relevant to Matt because his blindness to find him. It's relevant to Karen because of vague events in her past that sort of at this stage we're assuming has had like a really profound impact on her. What is the function of that speech to Foggy though? Like it gets him to to like empathize with Frank and see it from his perspective. But like, wait, what's the outcome of this exercise that Karen does?
Foggy just like stows away his shitty attitude is basically the outcome.
Okay,
it's kind of all she achieves. Yeah, this is the tricky thing, because for Foggy, like, this isn't the case. He doesn't have that single dramatic moment. The closest thing he has is deciding to go to law school instead of opening a butcher shop, right? Like, it's, you know, he's a man surrounded by people forged from tragedy, and he just simply doesn't. He is simply not that.
Isn't there some sort of revelation though? Like, doesn't that lead into the conversation about the EM or the ME? Sorry.
Possibly.
Yeah.
You might be right,
like,
actually. Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, there is some plot function here, which I don't remember. But yeah, it could be. It could be. I got so stuck up on the thematic stuff that I forgot the plot part of it because it's so evocative to me. But yeah, you're right.
It's just, man, it's so funny how just like Foggy is always the one that just has like nothing going on in relation to like these heavy sort of speeches.
I guess next time he does, next season he gets his own stuff. But yeah. What do you make of so? Jesus. So once again, Matt and Elektra go out together, and I'm like, guys, what are we doing? Now, this happened. So, okay, I was trying to remember the impact here. So Matt and Karen have their work date after. You're right. So this conversation that Karen and Foggy have produces the revelation that they need to cross-examine the ME to get him to reveal that he doctored the reports of Frank's family, which then leads into Karen and Matt going to his apartment to do this prep, right? Pretty sure.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
that's where they have their awkward work date thing, right? Or is that later?
But there's a scene. No, there's a scene with Elektra before that. Because I have it written down when they're sitting on the couch. So they must have done something before that. No, yeah, they were at the shipyard, the at the train depot, and they were investigating.
Is that before? Oh, you're right. Okay. Yeah. You know what? I do have that on my notes. Yeah. And they discover the big truck transporting dirt, basically, like the rail car.
Yeah.
Which I went, what the fuck is happening? The show rules when it does stuff like this. Like, I was like, I don't know what the fuck that's about. I'm excited to find that out.
I don't think the show kind of knew what that was about either. It was pretty strange. Like, so it's because it was a setup. They knew that the ledger got stolen, and so they created a diversion. Yeah, but like just the way it's.
Well, or did they dig a giant fucking hole and they need to put the dirt somewhere, so they're shipping it out of New York.
Oh, right, okay. But why was it just in that one cart then?
I don't know, man.
It was just such a weird scene.
It's so weird.
Where they open it and they're like, dirt? Oh, do they know we're here? Like, she says it so casually as well. And then some guys with, and then like only 3 guys with guns run out, and she's like, the fuck is happening?
It's so good. Yeah, they beat the shit out of these guys. Again, it's good stuff. The action here is great. Always cool to see them doing big flips and cartwheels and kicks and stuff. They made Matt a lot more flippy this season. He's doing a lot more kind of big flips and kicks and stuff.
He's doing like a lot of parkour as well. Wall kicking.
Yeah, the whole time I was like, is he showing off for Elektra? What's going on? Is he doing extra stunts, you know? Man, we have to like, okay, so they do that. They discover the dirt, and that's kind of like a dry lead, like that doesn't really go anywhere. And then the most weird fucking scene happens where they're back at Matt's apartment, and They're not nude, but they may
It's
as
a bit
well
too
be.
flirty.
It's a
It's a
lot.
bit too flirty.
It's a bit too flirty. Like I've written down here, being mostly nude with your ex-girlfriend at your apartment is a big party foul. Shouldn't be
Yeah.
doing this. What I think is interesting is they obviously, you're right, they have this kind of flirty exchange where they're sort of like, Elektra starts it by saying, "Oh, like I don't recognize that scar," and she's making a move on him. Like, let's be clear, like she is making a move here, and he is sort of passively resisting. I say passively because he's just sitting there. What I thought was really noteworthy here is that he sits up. He's basically like sitting up to watch over her while she sleeps, and the sound of her breathing, which is the same thing that the story focused on when they first met in the flashback. That breathing is the same thing that helps him get to sleep, which is like so specifically intimate that I was like, oh, this has gone from a potential problem to we are running headlong into an issue here. And I was like, that's probably, like, to me at least, like that's a much more intimate thing than if they had slept together in some sense. Like that's a much more like emotionally intimate. He's recalling the first time they met, and and he's falling asleep to, like, it's such a little detail. Yeah, it's pretty astounding. And then of course because he falls asleep, which was not his plan, because he falls asleep to this thing which is like super intimate, he's then late for for court the next morning.
Didn't set an alarm.
Didn't set an alarm because he wasn't expecting to fall asleep, because he forgot how relaxing he finds her breathing, or sexy he finds it, or who knows what's going on there.
It's just a really like tender moment.
It's crazy, man. Yeah.
Their conversation is like really interesting as well. When he asks her, "Where did you go after that night?" And also, "Why didn't you come back?" And he says something like, "Did you find what you were looking for?" And then she said, "Well, mostly I found that I was alone." And then he says, "Well, why didn't you come back?" And she says, "Because you deserve better." And then so we start to get some more insight into Elektra's mind, where she did what she thought was best for Matt in her own way, which, suggests that she cares for Matt more deeply than she lets on. And which, is interesting because it contrasts a lot with like her outward flirty kind of like seductive affectations. Really, she's a softie. She's mushy for Matt.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, like, that contrast between her like affective register and this admission, and also the ways in which he talks about everyone else except Matt. There's that moment in the party in the previous episode where Matt's like, "You just assume that like every man wants to sleep with you." She's like, "Yeah, well, because it's been true so far." You get those big points of contrast. The confidence, bro. No, the arrogance, Pat. The arrogance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and like, for this to be the reason that he misses the opening statements is like, mwah. Chef's kiss, guys. Fucking nailed it. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't really have a lot to say about him I mean, it's pretty well done. He misses the opening statements. Foggy's like, "Can you just fucking get your shit together and be here, please?" But beyond that, we don't really get a lot. And you're right. So this is when Karen and Matt decide to go back to his place to work on the prep for the Emmy, to cross-examine him tomorrow. And no one's really sure what Foggy's doing. He's on the bench for this episode a little bit, and really just really Hail Marys that opening statement, and it just is nothing. He just doesn't really say anything.
Well, isn't that sort of the point of an opening statement, though? Like, Reyes' opening statement wasn't really anything. It's just sort of like table dressing.
Kind of, yeah, but then it depends. I mean, if you look at how Matt's done it previously. His aren't that, which is I think his like superpower in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Because it seems pretty clear that like Matt is like the big opener and closer speech guy, and then Foggy is like the in the middle weeds guy, like the detail and the witnesses and all that stuff.
Right. And then Foggy stepping up to do the opening argument is also like an important beat in his arc this season as well, and throughout next season. So take a note.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Matt has always been the kind, like Matt has always been in some sense like not his superior, but like there is a position these two occupy, and Matt is the lawyer in this partnership, and Foggy is a good lawyer.
Yeah, well, yeah, Foggy has a dependency on Matt for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now we have to talk about the fucking most uncomfortable like Karen and Matt shit I've seen in a minute. So they're having like a pretty cute work date where they're eating Thai food and drinking red wine, and it's all just normal, and Karen inadvisedly broaches the subject of, and this is where that hypocrisy you were talking about is back, right? Because she says, what if the law fails? What should we believe protects us then? And he says, he jokingly is like, you're asking a Catholic lawyer. And then they get into it, and he's like, are you saying that like you agree with like what the Punisher did? And she's like, I don't know, maybe. Like, well, no, not really, I don't know. And then Matt says, vengeance is not justice. And there's a way that this like really reveals how flat Matt's worldview can be, and how like absurdly naive and kind of inflexible it is. She's trying to engage him in some kind of discourse about this, and he just immediately shuts. Like, he's incapable of, in some ways he's incapable of having this conversation, because it would mean admitting that there is a possible reality where he might cross that line and might need to, and it might be the right thing to do.
Well, yeah, he's compelled to take that stance because otherwise he'd be a hypocrite. Or like, because otherwise, I don't know. It's just something he can't admit to like considering because he is like a vigilante, and yeah, I don't know. Just the fact that he's like, yeah, you know, you're asking like a Catholic lawyer. It's like, oh yeah. Yeah, and he can't really say anything more than that.
It's also cool because I mean they're obviously both concealing things from each other, right? Because in this moment, Karen hasn't told him that she killed Wesley. No one knows that. And so she's also thinking about herself a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, yeah, I think maybe she has these more like utilitarian views because she's killed someone herself. And she's someone much more vulnerable than Matt as well. Like, it's all well and good for Matt to say, no, like, you don't need to stop these criminals before they commit crimes, you know, because, I mean, you know, I can just stop them. Well, for someone like Karen and for a lot of other people, well, you're still gonna get assaulted first. Like, you still might die first before any justice happens, if it happens at all. So like, it's just, yeah, as like Matt is like really, really like naive. He just doesn't see things from any other perspective, really.
Yeah, and then he sort of he performs this intervention where he's like he kind of like he performs this like little intervention in that conversation where he's like, hey, like we're probably just stressed. It's a big case, you know, and he kind of does the like we love to see adulting maneuver of going like, yeah, this is not a conversation we should keep having. Maybe we should just call it a night. And then Karen leaves, and there's not even a goodbye kiss. And I went, I audibly went when she left, because it's so rough. Like, I love these little moments of character drama. They're so well motivated. Yeah. And then the thing that fucked me all the way up is Karen leaves, and then Elektra reveals that she was there the whole time. I was like, what the fuck? And the more I thought about it last night, the more I was like, as I was rewatching this scene and trying to take some notes, and I went, like, Elektra is a really interesting character because she, not only does this disrupt and recontextualize the scene we just watched, but this is also like, her presence here is like a disruption of the genre of this other story that Matt is in. Matt is in like a law procedural romance story, and then she like intervenes at like a formal and structural level to constantly make it this like comic book fantasy story, but like she's literally disrupting the structure of the narrative to do so. And like there's this like she gets to initiate these mode switches where the law procedural, and we talked about this in the first season, the law procedural and the religious epic commingle quite well. These two modes feel like in direct opposition with each other, to the point where like Elektra and her presence literally intervenes in their plan in the courtroom with the ME. Like this show is so like,
yeah,
it's so these things are so inextricably linked that they create their own tensions between each other. As the genre is disrupted, so too in the narrative, the actual work is disrupted, and so too at like a structural level, the scene is disrupted, and therefore the relationship is disrupted. It's that kind of like you was talking about it before, but the story exists both at the kind of literal level and then at like the super level, and they're doing exactly the same things. It's very, very tidy and concise.
Yeah, it's so unique. It's such like good problem solving from like, you know, a narrative perspective. How do we connect these two threads of story, of like, how do we connect these two directions that really have nothing to do with each other at all? And yeah, they do it. They maneuver it like that.
And it's honestly, it's pretty damn impressive. is the thing.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
And that's part of why I think like there was a feeling I had the first time I watched this, which I was trying to allude to, and I couldn't quite put it into words, which is I didn't necessarily enjoy these episodes the first time I'm talking about on my first viewing. Coming back to them now, I think I didn't enjoy them because they're not supposed to be enjoyed. They're supposed to give you that feeling of like you're waiting for reality to be disrupted again. Like every time you get into the comfortable groove and you feel like, oh, Matt's getting his life back together, Elektra turns up and there's another disruption. And it's like, it is able to constantly perform these small interventions that keep you off balance. And so it puts you into that psychology of Matt, not as an empathetic figure like in the previous season, but as someone who is like self-destructive and like someone who, you know, you can see him on the train track and you keep trying to pull the brake and he keeps not letting you. Or every time he goes to pull the brake, Elektra reminds him or distracts him and then he keeps going. It's a very there are parts of these episodes which are unpleasant to watch, not because they're bad, but because that is like what they're going for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gone for real like personal kind of like human drama vibe this season, which is, I mean, it's the stuff I like. So yeah,
placed in kind of cool contrast to the crazy bigness of this fantasy stuff in the background, and then of course Frank Castle, and it's goddamn, it's impressive. Is really is what we're trying to say there. We get to the courtroom the next day, and the Emmy reveals that he was threatened by a woman who said that if he didn't fess up, that she would kill him. And this completely fucks up their plan.
I just love how there is so much build-up and so much talk and discussion about like how are we going to get this Emmy to crack, and then he cracks on like the second question
immediately.
Like it's I just thought that was that's definitely not meant to be funny, I think, but I found it pretty funny.
It's the fact that like it's the reason it's funny is like you can feel Matt building up and being like, okay, it's time. And then it just immediately it's like, oh no, I need to confess. It's great.
It's like I don't know what it's from, but like I don't know, just a scenario of like someone getting tortured for information. It's like, nah, mate. It's just like before they even like touch the person, they're just like, all right, I'll tell you everything.
He just immediately confesses.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Yeah, like I said, like Elektra, her intervention breaks the structure of the law procedural, the structure of Matt's romance story, and the structure of their defense case. It's fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
This also forces Matt and Foggy get into it big time in the bathroom. Matt reveals that Elektra is back. And Foggy's like, "Oh, so your girlfriend fucking threatened our witness." And that's where he says, "Stop acting like these things happen to you. Elektra is not the problem, Matt. You are."
Mm-hmm.
Damn. Foggy with the truth bombs, man. Crazy. Yeah, it's a pretty good argument, but this I feel bad because everyone in this show is really good. Every now and then they direct Foggy and he just doesn't, he sounds like a guy doing a speech. I said it before in the hospital scene with the night nurse, but like this feels a little bit like him doing a big speech, and I needed it to feel a little bit more like a conversation. And they just keep directing him like this, and I don't know why.
I thought it was pretty good. Like how the performance goes when he's trying to like piece together the fact that like it's Matt's ex-girlfriend from college, and he's like what? Isn't she like the daughter of some rich guy? Like what the fuck are you talking about? And I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was quite good. His performance.
Yeah. I think it's stuck in my teeth now, and I am not going to get rid of it. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good idea.
I like how what happens after? Oh yeah, that's right. He meets Elektra on the roof, and then he goes like, you did this thing, and then they go do something else. But I like I like how it sort of, there's a feeling that the further Matt's interpersonal relationships break down, the more he spirals further into being Daredevil, because like there are no rules when you're Daredevil, like that you can just, there's no real consequences or anything. So the more chaotic you get, like the more that aligns with his life as Daredevil. It's like a coping mechanism, sort of. Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it like last season, but like that's kind of where you think, oh yeah, you could see a different version of this show where he has like a substance abuse problem or something else to go along with all this stuff.
Yeah.
He also has this great line where, well, so yeah, he's there. Foggy storms out, and Karen's like, "You need to tell me what the fuck is happening." And they both just leave, and she's like, "Great, sick, like cool, fuck me, I guess." And then Matt goes out to confront Elektra, and he says, "Both halves of my life, both halves of my life are mine," which is already getting us to think about where this story could go later, but is a really great kind of way of saying it. And yeah, like you said, they've got a beat on the Yakuza in the storeroom, and Matt just beats the absolute shit out of a couple guys, like just goes to town on them. And then yeah, they go into the warehouse, and we get the reveal that the Yakuza have dug a giant ass hole in the ground, and it goes down a long way. It's a really weird kind of cliffhanger to end on. I was like, what the fuck is, you know what it was, Pat? It was one of those things where it happened, and I was like, I could watch the next episode right now. Pat doesn't have to know.
Yeah.
I could sneak it.
I will know.
I was like, I need to know what happens. And I was like, no, that's not the process.
Honestly, I even forget what happens next episode. Oh, actually, no, I think I remember. But yeah, no, it's this show like switches subjects like on a dime. It's so weird.
I mean, yeah, but that's kind of like that's sort of what I love about the way it uses Elektra to do that, right? Is I think that there is another show where this would feel contrived if everything wasn't so tightly wired back to Elektra and her relationship to Matt. this would feel like, I'm trying to think of like another way that they could do this. Like if this was instead, let's say instead this was Stick, right? Who showed back up in this moment and was intervening in these ways. I think it would feel convenient, or it would feel more contrived in some way because it wouldn't have that kind of isometric mirroring of the Karen and Matt stuff. Like there's ways in which like you could argue that Elektra showing up here and being his kind of ex-girlfriend while he's getting together with Karen is too convenient, but it doesn't feel like that way because the form is different, even though the schematic is the same. And it's hard to put into words why it works so well, other than everything at each level of the story is firing kind of in the same direction. Like, for example, right? Like we were saying before, Elektra is disrupting the romance between Karen and Matt. And the romance was them working on the case. And as a result of that disruption, she then further disrupts the case by threatening the ME, which then disrupts the romance even further and disrupts Matt's relationship with Foggy, which is going to irreversibly disrupt the law case. Like it's so like interlinked and kind of like built it like layered on top of each other that swapping subject matters so quickly feels like the story has earned its way there, because these things are just this, like Matt is spinning all of these plates and it feels like we're waiting for some, like the other shoe to drop, and changing the subject matter is a great way to give us that reveal where it's like, we're hoping that Matt will like stop helping Elektra and go back to his life, but this reveal means he cannot do that. He has to pursue this.
Yeah. I think it justifies itself pretty well in the coming episodes. But yeah, change in subject matter or just a new element being introduced in the existing story, right? Like it's just kind of the same thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, great, really great run of episodes. This, I think you were right. Like these ones gave me the most to think about, I guess, at like a formal level. I know a lot of the other stuff we've talked about is really like that, symbolism and the thematics and stuff. But this is like, this to me, as a part of this story, is really impressive structurally. Like I learned a bunch of stuff watching these and studying them, and like it's made me think about a lot of different maneuvers that you can do with story and genre switching and mode switching as well. And how you can kind of have these big dissonant pieces feel irreversibly linked it's really an impressive thing to kind of witness at the end of the day. Damn good stuff.
And yeah, it's, I don't know. I mean, why do you think people don't like this season so much? Like I think it's kind of because to some people that dissonance doesn't that dissonance remains dissonant. Like they don't see the harmony in those, like in these subjects like weaving together and stuff. I don't know, I think for a lot of people, they just see like events in the story, and like it doesn't necessarily, and there's not too much connection between the Hand and the Frank Castle case, and then that's like just those two objects in their mind can't resolve each other. And
yeah. But that's part of the mode that we talked about at the start, right? Which is like, that's part of the solving mode instead of the mystery mode, right? Where it's like that comes from wanting these things to be explicable in some way, and wanting everything to be like legibly logical, I guess is a way to think about it. I was trying to explain this the other week, and I think I found a good phrase, which is like, stories don't need to be logical, they need to be internally consistent. And those aren't the same thing. And I think if you seek for logic here, you're going to frankly come up against the fact that it's two different genres, and one of them feels like it is like what would be the way to say it, like they feel like they're oppositional to each other, but that's the point, and in that opposition is unity. And I think that that's tricky if if you're just like you said, if you're just looking at it as like, why does A and then B happen? If you go down that route of like trying to logic the story, you're not meeting the story where it's at, I don't think.
It's also like kind of in terms of the other seasons as well, it's the most low-key kind of drama, which, you know, maybe people don't come to superhero shows for that. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like it's lunchroom drama, and we fucking love it.
Yeah.
It's great. Where do I sit at the lunch table at school? It's really good. Okay, so next time we are talking about episodes 21, 22, and 23, which is season 2, episode 8, 9, and 10. These ones are kind of our big ramp up as far as like the progressing the story of Elektra and the kind of this big Yakuza apparatus and the big hole in the ground, as well as the Frank Castle case. And we will get, of course, the return of some characters as well.
Ooh.
Which is going to be interesting because
Spider-Man?
It's Spider-Man, he's back. So look forward to that. I'm very, very excited. Pat, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find us, or people can find me at... how do I do my plug again? I have a podcast I do with my friend Mitchie. I have a podcast called A Method to the Madness. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. We have a website, AMTTM.com. You can find our socials from there.
I said this before, but if you like this mode, you should definitely check out the Breaking Bad series that you guys did, which is very much in a similar mode of like long form study.
Yeah.
And the best part about it is like the ways in which Mitchie and Pat come at that story are so different at times that it produces some really like, frankly, like genuinely surprising conversations when Mitchie will like levy an argument with like incredible depth and nuance about themes and stuff, and Pat's like, yeah, but maybe funny scene was funny, and then vice versa.
That's what I watch the show for. I don't know what Mitchie's on about, eh?
Yeah, crazy. You can find everything we do at ZeroIndent.com. You can grab yourself a Daredevil in the Details shirt. We have merch at underink.press, or it will be linked in the show notes. It really does help support the show. And wherever you consume this, consider giving it a rating, a review, or a comment on your platform of choice. It helps more people find the show. And of course, if you know someone who you think would enjoy this, please send it to them. Word of mouth is the only way that we advertise. We don't do any advertising anywhere except within our own network. So it really does help us out. We will catch you guys next time for episode 10 of Daredevil in the Details. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And as we always say, Pat, Daredevil?
Yeah. That's, yep.
Daredevil, Daredevil over.
Don Devil in the details. Am I right, fellas?
Am I right, fellas? I'll catch you guys in the full.